The year was 1995. Insomniac, formerly Extreme Software, were working on a brand new first-person shooter called Disruptor for the 3DO. While looking for a publisher, founder Ted Price found himself in the office of Mark Cerny at Universal Interactive Studios. Cerny liked their game, but recommended they switch from the 3DO to the PlayStation in order to boost their sales. Cut to the fall of 2019. Insomniac Games has become one of the most critically acclaimed game studios of all time, especially after their release of Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4. Price had just signed a deal with Sony, selling the studio for $229 million. They had two new games that were ready to be released. The first was Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, a sequel to their most critically acclaimed game of all time. The other was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, one of the first games ever released exclusively for the PS5. And boy, is it good.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of The Completionist, where we don't just beat the games, we complete them. One of the most important things for a gaming hardware company to have is a franchise to call its own. Xbox has Halo, Sega had Sonic when they made hardware, and Nintendo has Mario, and Zelda, and Donkey Kong, and Splatoon. Look, there's a whole lot when it comes to Nintendo. Although the PlayStation has had many different series define each of its different consoles, none have been more consistent than Ratchet and Clank. Starting out on the PlayStation 2, the series has appeared on each of the following consoles almost exclusively, so it is a really good thing that it's appearing right now for the PlayStation 5, because currently, there aren't really a lot of options out there when it comes to playing games on the PS5. So with that said, let's begin.
Yes! All glory goes to the winner!
As of November 12, 2020, the 9th generation of gaming consoles has begun with the release of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. But what was meant to start with a roar actually began with a bit of a whimper. Whether it was due to lack of stock or delivery man flat out stealing the console, Target, you son of a bitch, barely anyone had one of these new systems. However, that may not have mattered if you had the console, because there aren't that many games to play starting out that are exclusive to these consoles. While there are many PS4 games that are playable on the PlayStation 5, as of today, there are only 6 games that are exclusive to the system: Astro's Playroom, Demon's Souls, Destruction All-Stars, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, Returnal, and now Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Meanwhile, the Xbox Series X literally has, well, 0. This means the 9th generation is essentially starting off with those 6 PS5 games, 2 of which are remakes of already existing games. Also, 2 more of those feel a little bit more on the smaller side that don't necessarily feel like full games. That means the only 2 full brand new games we've got starting out this generation are Returnal and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Although Returnal was technically the first completely new game to come out on the PlayStation 5, I technically haven't completed it yet. And while I did complete Astro's Playroom pretty quickly, that's not really so much a full game as it is a tech demo for the PlayStation 5. So TLDR, Rift Apart is going to be the first completely exclusive PS5 game that I'm completing, and I can't be more stoked. Over the past few years, I have had a few forays with the Lombax and his robot buddy. While it was fun getting to see where the series began, my first time with Ratchet and Clank was the remake that came out in 2016, and I loved that. So, I started the series with a fresh coat of paint, went back, and cut my teeth on the classics. And now I am back in the modern day to see how well this 19-year-old series has aged. 19-year-old series, dear God. And by the looks of it, it has aged really well. Rift Apart takes full advantage of the power of the PlayStation 5, and it is stunning. It's bright, colorful, and immediately grabs your attention. The amount of detail on every creature and set piece is astounding, and each weapon and explosion is a true feast for the eyes. All the characters are very expressive, both in animation and in sound. The entire cast, of course, is incredible. I want to give a special shout out to Richard Steven Horvitz as Zircon Jr.
Say hello to your little friends in the Club of Doom!
I am always okay with more Invader Zim in my games. This quality carries over into the score, which perfectly captures the atmosphere of every level you're on, whether you're trekking through a space mine or bouncing on parade balloons. You start out playing the game at the parade meant to celebrate the heroics of Ratchet and Clank, even though they technically haven't done anything in years. Although they are ambushed by thugs for less, our titular heroes make it to the end unscathed, where Clank has a gift for Ratchet, a rebuilt Dimensionator that Ratchet can use to find other Lombaxes. Suddenly, our duo is ambushed again, this time by Dr. Nefarious, who steals the Dimensionator, which Ratchet shoots, sending all three of them into an alternate dimension where that dimension's Nefarious has successfully conquered the galaxy. And in the crash, Clank is damaged and recovered by Rivet, this dimension's version of Ratchet. She takes him off the planet where Ratchet is left alone to try and find his friend. Now, this opening section sets up everything beautifully. Not only does the opening parade serve as a great tutorial level for the game's basic mechanics, but it also gives a nice outline of what happened in the previous games. It really shows you how much of a hero Ratchet and Clank are. But my favorite part of this whole intro has got to be Rivet. Insomniac goes farther than just making her an opposite of Ratchet. She is so much deeper than that. Instead of being a hero, she's a member of the resistance to Emperor Nefarious. She has a mechanical arm because her original arm was ripped off by one of Nefarious's robots. She's confident, friendly, stubborn, and willing to stand up for anyone. Clank gets a great counterpart as well with Kit. Kit is also a robot with a bit of a darker story than Clank. She was a war robot in Nefarious's army, but doesn't want to be violent and hurt innocent people. However, her programming makes it so that when she fully transforms into a giant weapon, she can't control herself. This makes her much more pensive and self-doubting than the rest of our playable characters. This made me realize that Rivet and Kit are the protagonists of this story. Yeah, Ratchet and Clank's names are on the front of the box, but they feel more like mentors to the other characters. Plus, you play as Rivet and Kit for a little bit more of the game. They go through most of the change in the game, and they're the underdogs. In an interview with GameSpeed.com, Insomniac founder Ted Price said they tell stories about underdogs that overcome adversity when they think it's not possible. That's Rivet and Kit to the T. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Rivet and Kit game in the upcoming years. In fact, I'm looking forward to that. Both are brought to life by the fantastic performances of Jennifer Hale from Totally Spies and Deborah Wilson from Mad TV as Rivet and Kit respectively. They both do a wonderful job and make these characters just feel that much more real. Honestly, everything about this game's presentation is perfect. A lot of reviewers have said that it looks like a modern 3D animated movie, and I can see why. It's that gorgeous, but they're just talking about the graphics. For me, the thing that makes it seem that much more of a high-quality animated film is how well this game tackles more mature subject matters. Just a tiny heads up, there is going to be a little bit of spoiler talk ahead that directly talks about some of the big twists and turns. So, if you want to be surprised when you play the game, skip ahead to this time code right here on screen. Alright, here we go. When you first meet Kit, you learn she was a war bot in Nefarious' army, right? She injured someone breaking into the palace. She injured them. This affected her so much that she ran away and joined the Time Monks on Savali. Later, we learn that Rivet was the person who was injured. Kit now has to deal with the repercussions of what she did, especially when Rivet learns that it was her. At the same time, Rivet has to decide whether she's going to hate Kit forever or forgive her. These are tough concepts to grasp, whether you're a child or you're an adult, and Rift Apart handles this all beautifully.
When I saw Soul, I was struck by how well it handled the discussion of mortality. And How to Train Your Dragon was just as successful with topics like prejudice and not living up to expectations. In that same vein, Ratchet and Clank tackles forgiveness and accountability for your past actions incredibly well while maintaining stunning sound and visuals. And what's even more incredible is that this game is damn fun too. But if you've played a Ratchet and Clank game before this, you already know that.
When it comes to gameplay, everything is mostly similar to what we've seen in all of Ratchet and Clank games that have come before it. Lots of jumping, shooting enemies, and collecting bolts. This was perfected in Going Commando and has been a staple of the series ever since. What's changed here is your movement. There are a ton of fun mobility options in Rift Apart that make the game feel exciting. Right at the beginning of the game, you get access to the Rift Tether. This allows you to use the dimensional rifts to travel from area to area almost instantly. It not only looks cool, but feels so satisfying. I genuinely wish there were more dimensional rifts that you could travel through in combat to really spice things up. Another ability you get early on is a dash maneuver. This not only helps you move through some blocked doors, but it also works as a dodge in combat or a way to make your jump go a little bit farther. This is especially helpful in the early stages of the Battleplex, when your weapons aren't that great and you are surrounded by lava. The extra combat mobility provided by the rifts and that dash make it all very possible. There are also a ton more platforming options like rail grinding, wall running, and swinging. The hover boots even made a new and improved return, making traveling long distances fast and fun. It's just a shame that there isn't as much exploration to justify all of this. While all the levels are gorgeous and designed beautifully, most of them are fairly straightforward. Get from point A to point B, and that's kind of it. It's a beautiful and fun journey, but there's not much actual journeying. In previous entries, I remember getting to choose what order I tackled objectives and being able to go as far as I wanted to. If I could see it, I could probably go there. In fact, there are usually rare collectibles there, like a golden bolt or a secret. With Rift Apart, there is usually only one objective per planet and a lot more invisible walls in each level than I would have liked. There are some fun distractions from the main gameplay, like the glitch levels and the Clank and Kit dimension puzzles, but the side missions are not nearly as substantial as previous games. Now, all of this isn't necessarily bad, it's just different. What we have instead of exploration are big set pieces, which I have to admit are really cool. A big standout for me is a huge rail grinding section with a giant robot that is constantly destroying the rails you're grinding on. It's exciting for sure, but a lot more predictable. And like I said, this isn't a bad thing. I just really enjoyed getting to travel in this game. I wanted an excuse to go off, see a random platform in the distance, and figure out how to get there. Now, they're usually just a single button click away with the Rift Tether. But this doesn't mean that there aren't any collectibles though. With every Ratchet and Clank game, there are tons of different things to collect, and each of them are really satisfying. First of all, the golden bolts have returned. Although you collect regular bolts constantly as currency, golden bolts are usually more difficult to find and are hidden away within every single level. Each of these unlock a different cheat that makes the game an absolute blast to replay. My personal favorite changed the appearance of the bolts so they look like rupees. Sorry, I meant rubies. No copyright claims here, Nintendo. Second are the Lorbs. These are orbs left behind on the planet Savali by the Lombaxes. Each one carries a bit of information about the Lombaxes' attempts at traveling through the different dimensions. These are once again a little short-sighted since they all can be found on a single planet, but they are still super interesting and result in some new armor. Speaking of armor, that's the third collectible in this game. There are a bunch of different pieces of armor to unlock for Ratchet and Rivet to wear. Each one grants a different bonus for basic gameplay. Fortunately, these bonuses are granted whether you wear the armor or not, so just choose your favorites and have fun. These are earned by helping out a few of the NPCs or by exploring pocket dimensions. Pocket dimensions are quick little platforming challenges that will always result with a piece of armor at the end. They're very fun and very quick. In fact, I wish once again that there were more of them to do. The fourth collectible is the Spy Bots. Now, these are like the info bots from the very first game, but they have secret information about the different planets for the resistance against Emperor Nefarious. If you collect all of these from Ms. Zircon, she'll reward you with the Rhino 8, the best weapon in the game. Speaking of weapons, there are plenty of them in this game, just like there would be when you come to Ratchet and Clank. And while there are a few standouts like the Topiary Sprinkler and the Enforcer, most feel like repeats from previous games that can fit into a few simple categories. Yet, they all can be leveled up in combat and upgraded into Omega weapons with even more bolts and Raritanium. Raritanium is used in each of the weapons upgrade trees to increase the amount of ammo, damage dealt, and things like that. Finally, there are the Cragger Bears. These are a tribute to Craig Goodman, an artist at Insomniac who is one of the main designers behind Ratchet. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2019 due to brain cancer. One of these bears can be found on each planet. Golden bolts, Lorbs, armor, spy bots, weapons, Raritanium, and Cragger Bears. That's a lot of different items to collect in this game. It must get really frustrating, right? No, not at all. That's because of a little item called the Map-O-Matic. On the pirate-themed level planet of Ardalis, which is my favorite level in the game, you can go on a mission to find the pirate's treasure. Inside is the Map-O-Matic, and it reveals where almost every collectible in the game is. Almost every single one, every golden bolt, every rift, every piece of raritanium. The only thing that isn't revealed are the Krager bears. And honestly, those aren't that difficult to find. I found most of them by accident in my first playthrough.
Whenever a game rewards you by making the completion process easier, that gets an A in my book. And honestly, I kinda needed this win too. Not that this game was too hard, far from it, but I had just finished completing a ton of games that took too much effort and took way too much of my time. Rift Apart was exactly what I needed at the moment to get through the game, and I absolutely needed to be ready for challenge mode. Boy, it wasn't hard. It was easy. It was incredibly easy. Challenge mode, more like take a nap mode. So easy, you want to nap.
After the first Ratchet and Clank game, every single entry in the franchise has had a challenge mode. This serves as a great way to go through the game a second time in order to finish all those weapon upgrades, find the last few collectibles, and earn a ton of bolts with a bolt multiplier. And Rift Apart is no different. However, there is a huge difference in terms of difficulty. You see, I had already collected all 25 golden bolts in the first playthrough. That means I had unlocked all the cheats in the game, including unlimited ammo and health. Because of this, I was able to easily get the bolt multiplier up to 20. Add on the Carbonix armor bonus that increases the value of bolts by 20%, and I was able to quickly purchase the next level of weapon upgrades, plus 2 classic returning weapons that are some of my favorites in the whole series, the Pixelizer and the Bouncer. I was also able to easily collect all of the raritanium I needed to fully upgrade these weapons by replaying the same battle in the Battleplex over and over again. In no time at all, I had easily upgraded every single weapon I had, including the Rhino 8, now known as the Rhino Omega. I absolutely love the latest iteration of the Rhino, which now stands for Rift You a New One. Instead of shooting a barrage of missiles at your enemies, the Rhino now opens a rift above the level and drops something from another dimension. Only this isn't just dimensions from within the Ratchet and Clank universe. There's also stuff from Sly Cooper, Jak and Daxter, Horizon Zero Dawn, and even Insomniac's own Sunset Overdrive. It really makes collecting all 10 spy bots feel absolutely worth it. But that's not where the Easter eggs end, my friends. Each of the 12 Lorbs has data on a Lombax's journey to the different dimensions. In these, we get even more references to different Sony properties, which I absolutely loved. Unfortunately, that's where all the extra tidbits end. While every collectible rewards you in the game, there's no overall final completion bonus. Most of the 13 armor sets give you bonuses, except for the 5 you get for buying the deluxe edition. The 20 weapons you purchase and upgrade get stronger, but there's nothing for fully upgrading every weapon. And the 9 Krager bears, while cute, only give you a trophy. In fact, gathering all of these and completing the game the first time is pretty much all you have to do to acquire all 47 trophies. Yes, there are some specific weapon-based trophies, but those will pretty much happen naturally as you play the game. I can't help but wish that I got a big completion bonus like I did in Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. See, in Going Commando, doing everything unlocked the Insomniac Museum, which served as an awesome look at things that got cut from the final game, as well as tools they have used to program the game. This was not only a really cool look at some of the neat enemies and vehicles in the game, but also gave an inside view of what it takes to make a game, and I loved that. But Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was different. Instead of a big build to an awesome reward in the end, I felt empowered throughout the game due to how many constant rewards there were. And throughout my 21-hour-long journey, I never got bored because the stellar gameplay and presentation kept me constantly engrossed in the game that I was playing. This was truly one of those games that put a lot more emphasis on the journey rather than the destination, and it is genuinely a game I won't soon forget, easily in my top games of the year thus far.
I loved every single minute I spent with the Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It looks gorgeous, I love the characters, and the gameplay is addicting. My only real complaint is that I wish there was more game to play here. But even after I beat the game on my second playthrough, I kind of just kept on playing. I couldn't help myself, it's that much fun. Because of everything going on this past year and a half, the 9th generation of consoles has gotten off to a really weird start. But with the arrival of Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I can finally see what lies ahead in the future of our 9th generation of gaming consoles. So, with that in mind, guys, I give this game my completionist rating of completed.